It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by AgileDad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. I've been thinking a lot about vision lately and about sharing your why and why is so important. And I recently had an opportunity to do a really fun keynote presentation. And when I was talking about finding your why, I used an example from the Backstreet Boys from I Want It That Way. It was, tell me why, right? Tell me why, right? So it's just everybody wants to know why. And I think that the why is part of the vision. But I think a lot of people confuse the why with the how, or they incorporate just the why and not the how, or they skip one or the other, or they're not detailed in a way that they're defining what they're trying to do, or they get confused between their purpose and whatnot. And it ends up that their Backstreet Boy message just isn't in sync. It doesn't drive us in one direction and causes us to lose our. How many boy bands can I throw in one sentence? The truth is, when you define your product vision, that is the single most important step for your product to be successful. There, I said it. It is the most important thing because without it, you lose direction, you lose purpose, and challenges are everywhere. So, the importance of putting together a clear product vision statement is just incredibly important. Now, any of you who've taken an Agile Dad class before know exactly where I'm going with this. We talk about the Agile press release, and I use it centered around the book Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore and his use of the elevator pitch. And of course, the elevator pitch came from when people said if you were in a sales environment and you only had 45 seconds or 35 seconds in an elevator to share your business vision with someone, to have them invest in your product or service, what would they say? And it started out for our target customer who is suffering from this major problem or difficulty. Our product or service is this type of product or service that provides this key benefit or compelling reason to buy it. Unlike our competitors' product or service, ours is different or better in this way. Now, what I can tell you is that's solid because that answers the who, what, where, when, why, and how. But I thought I'd give you a little more depth in this particular episode to talk about how to really articulate your vision. And in order to do that, you need to understand what a vision really is. So, the vision lays out the aspirational purpose for a product or service. It explains why something exists. Usually, a vision statement aims to articulate the fundamental, future focused emotional state. It's a description of how the future might feel, thinking about long term aspirations or goals based on what you're trying to deliver. It should be something that holds true for many years, not just for a month or a week or a day. And I think that when people focus on vision, sometimes they either get too lofty or high level, or they get too in the devil of the details. So it's important for us to understand that while the background of a vision, so the background knowledge in place, you need to, and that might change. It's one of these things that you need to understand depending on the scale or scope of your product, how to formulate the vision to be at the right level. So, okay, here we go. So that also invites the question, why do we need a vision? The fundamental reason you need a vision is to clarify and communicate the purpose. So when I talk about clarification of purpose, let's face it, the world's a noisy place. There's an infinite number of customer issues, problems, things that need to be resolved, feature requests, etc. So, what is it exactly that you want your product to do? How do you want it to change the world? When you shape the vision, that means taking the time to clarify what your thought process is, what you're thinking. It gives structure to the efforts and a guiding principle to test your decisions against what helps you navigate all the events. So, if you're trying to really do this right, you should have a definitive communication of purpose. The Even though this is a collaborative effort when you build products, we talked about this yesterday, the concept of having a PO, BA, FA, TA, product owner, business analyst, functional analyst, and technical analyst that all work together to help the product owner understand the goal of the product or service. I think that while we understand that intrinsically, it's also important to ensure that we're moving in the right strategic direction, that we have the tools in place that are going to help us build the thing that's going to have the greatest technical value, but that we also understand the consumer's needs and we're balancing all three of those. So, when it comes time to create the vision, it should be easy for you to identify who your target audience is, what problem they're suffering from, how your solution is going to make it better. Why is it so important that we do it right now? All of these questions are things that need to be answered, and we need to address the time frame and make sure that we're not thinking too far in the future or too close to home. When we're talking about a vision, we do need to have a north star. It could be a greater vision, but we also need to have something that's a little bit tighter, right? That gives us, and the tighter vision can actually change, which is interesting based on strategic changes in the marketplace, based on consumer needs and desire. We can see these flow and change as they navigate through the product or project or service life cycle. So I think it's important for us to understand that the vision isn't just a vision at all. It's the vision plus the mission of what we're trying to do. And it answers all the questions. It answers the what and why statement, what our product or service does, why it does it the way that it does, or why it's important for us to deliver it now. How is it different than any other product or service that's out there, etc. It's supposed to allow leadership to really get their head around what we're trying to do and make sure that we're tied to the global North Star. And it's to provide valuable context for people who aren't necessarily as closely invested so that they understand contextually what they're trying to do. And so that the people who are building a product or service can tie the what you're asking for to why it's needed to how we're going to build it. I also think that it's important to point out that a product vision should be created right away in the early stages of discovery and initiate. Or I'm sorry, yeah, discovery and initiate. But it's important also to say that we need to check back at least once a quarter to make sure that we're still in line with that initial product vision and strategy execution. Sometimes to discover is your initial product and or service initiate or discover vision gets manipulated as you learn more about the customer's needs, or it gets manipulated as you learn more about the strategic expectations of the organization. So it's okay for a vision or a strategy to evolve. I also think that as you discover challenges or you receive additional insight or you have further discovery, I think that you can really dig in and understand that the vision really reflects the long term goal and a strategy is the path of how we're going to get there. And without both, you're not going to make it through. You need to have a clear strategy of execution in conjunction with your vision. There are tons and tons of information out there regarding this. My advice is don't get too lost in the details of the actual execution of how to do this, but sit down and try what works culturally for your organization and build out what you think would be a clear statement. In our workshops, we do this, and it's usually a 10 to 15-minute exercise where people can present an idea and then write a clear elevator statement about that idea. And I think that that's a fair exercise and a good thing for you to do. This shouldn't be overly complicated. It should be made easy, and it should be something that everyone gets excited about and wants to participate in because it helps those people tie the what's being asked to how it's going to be done to who needs it and why. It just kind of ties up all the loose ends and answers to who, what, where, when, why, and how. That's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, remember, learn more at agiledad.com. That's the best way to reach us. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.